Hello everyone, what's up? Prentice15 here with a review of NinjaGo Crystalized. The full thing this time. This isn't an impressions video. This isn't just the impressions of the second half or anything. This is my review of the full thing, start to finish, for better or for worse. And it was for worse, unfortunately. So yeah, Crystalized is out. Obvious spoiler warning ahead. Yeah, it's I'm pretty sure it's about to launch on American Netflix here within like the next week. I think it's like a week from today or something like that I'm recording this. Tuesday or Wednesday the 5th of October. If you are impatient, then you're probably still able to search for it on YouTube, as has been the status quo of Ninjago's distribution for nigh on a decade now. I'm not legitimately incensed by that at all. He said sarcastically. It's just that's a whole nother video I could make, and I'm not going to get into that right now because I could rant about that for an hour, and I'm not. So yeah, NinjaGo Crystalized. If a couple months ago I did my impressions video over the first half, and I was like, I'm cautiously optimistic about this. This couldn't turn out terribly at all, and while I don't think it turned out terribly, I don't think it turned out well. It was just, it was bad. It was bad. There's good things in it. It was not a rebooted level of everything here is horrible with no redeeming factors, especially a decade after the fact. But it was not good. And it's probably in like the bottom half of Ninjago at this point. Yeah, it just wasn't good. I can't believe how badly they messed this up. And it's like I'm seeing. It seems like it's getting mixed reactions from the conversations I'm seeing. It seems like it's getting mixed reactions. But even today, as I'm recording this, it seems like some of the people that were maybe a little bit more high on it, at least in the circles I traveled around, they were like, "Oh yeah, no, it had its problems, but I'm fine with it." It seemed like that reality has kind of slowly been setting in, and they're maybe beginning to, they're kind of starting to go, "Oh wait, that was an issue," and that. It's like, well, I knew that was a problem, but actually that problem's bigger than I thought. And it seems like reality's kind of setting in, and people are kind of maybe thinking it was worse than they even initially thought. And now that there's been a little time, because it's, like I said, there's good stuff in it. There's some good character interactions and stuff that I really like. There's some good ideas in terms of where the characters go, but it's just overall, it's just so it feels like Ninjago bingo. I think is my biggest complaint, is that it really feels like that they wanted to have. I mean, for Pete's sake, the thumbnail for this, the background that's going to be throughout most of this. It's like, so it's clearly, it was an inspiration. They wanted to have an Ninjago endgame, an Avengers endgame type event for Ninjago. The only problem is they didn't really have an Infinity War to set it up. And if you want to call Seabound the Infinity War to, I think that's actually, you could definitely do that. You could call Seabound the Infinity War to Endgame, where it's like most people will say that the first is better than the second, where Infinity War and Seabound are way better than Endgame and Crystalized. But Endgame was definitely a better finale than Crystalized was to the prior installment, because it's like, Endgame at least had resolved character arcs for a couple characters, and it's like you can nitpick the direction a couple of them went, but there's still a couple solid, like, oh yeah, we're bringing these characters to a head, and it's like it worked out well for most everyone involved. But with Crystalized, it's just they wanted to have their end-game cake and eat it too, but without the consequences. And that's the probably my biggest issue with Ninjago as a whole as of this point is that where are the freaking consequences? There are no consequences to this. If this were not to compare it, because I know this will probably make some people a little upset. It's like not to compare it to Bionicle, but to compare it to Bionicle. Bionicle, for all the for the issues that it may have had with its story now and again, it at least had consequences to those actions all the time. Characters stayed dead for the most part. Again, for the most part, that's not. There was a couple characters that died and came back. But like I said, for the most part, characters died and they stayed dead. There was like giant world-shattering ramifications that weren't erased and went forward and stuff. And it's like, but with Ninjago, and it had good villains, but with Ninjago, it just seems like they have this thing happen. You think, oh my gosh, this changes the world forever, and then 5 episodes later, nope, we reversed that. There are no consequences to this anymore. Even temporarily, there are no consequences. It's like, oh no, another 5 episodes, there's some consequences, and then those are gone now too. Those are gone now too. So I guess I'll just start getting into like my big gripes with this. So to start off with, Nia, who does not remain water. She, gets her humanity back, and this is one of the things that I talked about in my impressions. Like, okay, it's like I love these characters, so it's really cool to see her back and reunited with everyone. But I'm worried that they're going to do absolutely nothing with this. But I'm cautiously optimistic that this is maybe hopefully building up to a big thing at the end. It did not build up to a big thing at the end, and bringing Nia back was totally wasted. Because it's like I feel like there was so many better ways to handle that, where it had. Where it still had consequences. Like, what if they, it's like, okay, she manages to regain her sentience. She remembers that she's Nia. We still get that I am Nia moment, which was honestly cool, and I liked it and everything. But I kind of wish that maybe she had stayed water. And, like, she's able to interact with them, but she can't go on every mission. It's like she has to stick near bodies of water, or something, or it's like or pixel figure something out to where they are able to put her in a suit temporarily, or something where she's able to maintain her form, but it's bulky and cumbersome, and she can't really do her typical stuff, but she's at least able to interact with everyone. And this is kind of, I didn't really talk about this, I don't think, too much in my impressions video, but this is something I did have a problem with, is that Nia gets her consciousness back. She is able to be back with her family, and for a couple episodes, that is all that mattered to her. She's just like, no matter what, I have to get back to my family. And she achieves that, and then, like, pretty soon afterward, she then immediately goes into the big pout mode of, I'm useless, I am no good to this team, I am worthless, and I'm just like, oh, I hate writing like this, where characters can't just stay satisfied for any period of time. Like, there was no... Like, I would understand Nia being determined and wanting to help out, but she was all mopey, and was like, and I get it's a kid's show, but I mean, come on, these characters aren't kids anymore. They have grown up. Jay and Nia are, for all intents and purposes, married, for Pete's sake. They've had these, death-defying rescue missions that they've gone on and helped save the world, however many times and everything. It's like, these characters should be more mature than they are, and Kai kind of remaining a little bit of a clueless idiot at times. I think it's like, okay, and maybe that's just how Kai's character is, and that's part of the joke. But Nia, of all characters, I feel like is definitely one that has, for the most part, matured over the course of the show, especially with it going into Seabound and everything. So her just going, oh, I'm useless, it's time to mope around and stuff in part of Crystalized, I'm just like, this is so out of character. And that is one of the things that annoys me. Even if I don't necessarily agree with some of the plot points, in a TV show or something, I am still going to be able to accept it a little bit if the characters at least stay in character, and that's part of the reason why I have such an issue with Rebooted, is that not only do I think the plot is stupid, but also a lot of the characters don't are acting out of character and not like themselves. And that's not as big an issue here in Crystalized, but it's still an issue at times where it's like, why is Nia mopey? Why does she need to? It's like that whole mopey phase should have never happened, and she should have just immediately gone into determined, all right, I don't need my powers to help out. I was the original Samurai X. Without powers, I can be Samurai X again. Pixel, grab a blowtorch. We're building stuff, girl. It's like, I feel like, especially after Crystalized, after Seabound, Nia had really moved past some of that childish stuff, and she was definitely more mature than, because her kind of moping around in Seabound, I thought, was, it's like, oh, I mean, okay, she's been on the team for so long, and she doesn't understand what's going on with her powers, and she has this family, and she's on the even playing field with them and everything, and she's gotten used to that, so they're being a disruption to that, and kind of putting her down in the dumps and everything, but then Jay's nice and supportive and everything. It's like, that I thought was handled well, and it made sense. Her being mopey after, it just makes her seem kind of like, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but it just, because her just being unsatisfied and everything, it just makes her seem like it makes her feel like a bad character, it makes her feel out of character. It's like, don't mope, just immediately jump into, all right, let's fire up the Samurai X armor again picks, and it's like why does there need to only be one Samurai X? Because that was another thing, is that it seemed like Pixel passed the Samurai X mantle back to Nia, but why does there only have to be one? Why can't there be two? Why can't there be two Samurai X's? It's like, Pixel has the blue kind of color scheme on her armor, and she has from the start. Let Nia go back to the red. It's like Nia the red Samurai X and Pixel the blue Samurai X. Like the red and blue samurai. It's like, that would be cool. And it's like, you have the red and blue ninja and stuff. It's like, why not? Maybe you could start a whole samurai team. It's like, you got the red samurai and the blue samurai. It's like they could recruit some up and coming heroes, or the elemental masters or something, or these other people that have shown themselves to be capable warriors but don't have the elemental powers to be ninja, and they could be. This is all off the top of my head right now, by the way. I'm just now thinking about this, and this is all sounding awesome to me. Where it's like, and now you can have this this backup team of characters that can help out when the ninja get lost in another realm or leave for a time. Is that they can be is that the ninja can go away on these adventures all over the globe, and then you have your guardians, your away team and stuff that can stay there, because the elemental masters just really come and go, and that is really annoying at this point. I'll get into that in a minute. But it's like, and then you could have Dareth as the brown samurai. I mean, I think he would love that. Give him a mech. Give Dareth a mech, for Pete's sake. It's like, that would be so great. I would buy the heck out of a Dareth mech. Make it happen, Lego. I don't care if it's $10 or a 4+ set or whatever. It's like, give me a Dareth mech. I will buy it. So yeah, that'd be cool. So it's like, so that really annoyed me, and that was just like a. But I didn't really bring that up in my impressions video and everything I don't think. And I was still kind of, like cautiously optimistic, like, oh, it's like, we still have like, more than half a season left, really, because the last we got was like 12 and we ended on 30. So, I mean, it was so it's like, it was really a season and a quarter or whatever that we just got recently with part 2 of Crystalized. So it really was, it's like, there's still a lot of season to go here. They could do a whole lot. And it seems like they did very little with a whole lot, where there were actually more episodes released in this batch, but I feel like less happened. And on one hand, I feel like that was kind of done well. Like, I liked the shifting perspective of, here's what all the different ninja are doing as they get separated in the big city under siege. It's like, that was one of the things I think they kind of maybe did well, even if it was, like I said earlier, Ninjago Bingo, where it's like, okay, well, this is Hunted. Now we're just doing Hunted again. It's like it's Hunted, but with the March of the Oni color palette is what this is right now. But I kind of like that. It's like we got to see some of the other. It's like we had Skylar was there, Jake was there. It's like, oh, here's Cyrus Borg. It's like you got some of the returning villains, and slash minor antagonists like Ronan. It's like Ronan was really good. And Ronan, I think, was written in character again, finally, after he kind of seemed out of character earlier in the season. It's like, this is the Ronan I like. This is I know that I'm kind of grumpy with them right now, but that's just because I got caught and they threw me in jail. It's like, yeah, I deserve to get thrown in jail because I got caught. But that doesn't necessarily mean he hates the ninja. He was just kind of grumpy with them, and he knows what they're doing is the right thing, which is also probably, I think, what makes him grumpy against the ninja, because he's like, I wish I could just do that all the time. And so it makes him a pretty nuanced character. And so, and so for him standing up for the ninja in Cryptarium and going, hey, they're in the right here. They're trying to save everyone, even us bad guys, slash morally questionable characters. So shut up and don't question them when they beat you up and throw you in jail. I really liked that. And it was nice that he rallied the former Sons of Garmadon to help save the city and stuff. So yeah, it was cool to see some of the other characters back as they're running around the city, and having the little smaller episodes, and that's where I think the smaller episode format works. Is that we can split off and have an episode featuring these characters, kind of interacting in smaller chunks. However, and I think especially with where we are in the series, I really hope, because it's like, for one thing, Ninjago is not over, it's not ending. Everyone's treating this as an ending, and as of sorts, it is an ending, because this is the end of the Braggy Shoot era. This is the last Ninjago thing he's written, and now it's being passed on to both new and other returning writers. And Tommy's still, the executive producer and show running and everything like he has been in the past. But, this is the end of Braggy Shoot's run on the show. He's confirmed that on Twitter. So in that sense, it is an end of an era of Ninjago. And we know that Wild Brain is still going to continue on the production. They're not switching production studios again. But, with that said, in terms of the writing and, kind of some of the story arcs that he even started back in season 11 with Seekers of the Forbidden Spinjitzu, it's like that is an end of this chapter. And so it's like, okay, yeah, it is an ending of sorts. But seeing some of these tweets going, after however many years Ninjago has ended, is like, no, it hasn't. I don't know. It hasn't, but we know it hasn't. They've confirmed it's not ending. We may not get I don't know if we'll get these long seasons anymore, with 30 11-minute episodes or whatever. But it's not. Maybe all we're going to get from now on is hour-long specials. It's like, okay, that's still something. So it's not the story is going to continue in some way. It's not over. So it's like I don't really understand why so many people are totally freaking out, oh, it's over my childhood. I'm like, it's not over, not really. It's like, so anyway, that's a whole other thing I'll probably cover at another time, especially after we see what comes next. Because considering it's October, we're probably going to start getting leaks for the next stuff here pretty quickly. Leak season is probably about to be upon us, and then we'll start seeing fuzzy set images and stuff, and we'll be able to start to piece together some stuff there with hypotheticals. And then, it'll probably be January when we start getting the next season leaked, because that's how it goes. So, yeah, but with this is the end of an era of the show, and I have to say, I think the 11-minute format has been a failure overall. That's not to say that the 22 episode minute format was 100% successful all the time. I mean, obviously, I think Rebooted is still the worst season the show has churned out. Just on every aspect of that season, it's for the most part, 95% awful stem to stern, and that was in the 22 minute era. So it's but I feel like the worst problems Ninjago has reared their ugly heads more often in this 11-minute format era than in the previous era with 22-minute episodes, because it's like this my big complaint about the status quo always being maintained and everything, which 2 years ago and stuff, I remember hearing people complain about that. I'm kind of going, yeah, I guess, but I didn't really. It's like at this point, it's like, yeah, no, they have a real problem with maintaining the status quo and it returning and kind of resetting every time. Back in the 22-minute era, there was a little bit of that, but it wasn't a massive. It wasn't so obvious like it is now, where Zane died. There were still a lot of consequences because Zane dies and rebooted, and then he comes back, but he is forever changed after that. It's because he becomes the Titanium Ninja after that. And and it wasn't immediate 3 episodes in. It was a very short amount of time, really. I mean, it was more than halfway through Tournament of Elements before the ninja even spotted him and got to see him again. Where in Crystalized, they bring back Nia and they get her back to normal pretty quick. I mean, it's like she's an ice block for a couple episodes, but I mean, she's finding them again after like four 11-minute episodes. So that would only be like 2 22-minute episodes. So that's in like a quarter of the time, if that, Zane was missing from the group and was on his own in Tournament of Elements, and he is already kind of back in the fold. At least they're working on trying to get her back to normal, and again, they get her back to normal. And then later, her powers are starting to come back too. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like, based on the lore you set down with the way Asphira's staff works and everything, it's like, yeah, I guess it makes sense that her powers could eventually return, but oh my gosh, why could we not have had a lasting? Because now, with the whole bringing Nia back and everything, and her powers are coming back and stuff, it just really makes all that dramatic tension and stuff that Seabound built up and did so well and effectively, it just makes it all seem like a bit of a waste now. I mean, it's just like because there is no long-lasting impact from that. And like I said, it's like the 22-minute era wasn't necessarily free of this either, because it's like one of my big complaints from that era is Cole becomes a ghost. That's cool. He gets some new powers. It gives him a little bit of extra character depth. And he was that way for a year, and then they turned him back to regular. And it's like even they gave him the lava arms afterward, which has stuck around for a long time. But it's like I would have much rather him have stayed the ghost. That would have been cooler. I still think. So it's like even then they still did some things and reverse decisions pretty quickly, which was kind of annoying at times. But I feel like more often than not, when they did reverse decisions, they still did interesting things with them. And so while it may have technically been returns to the status quo of, oh, this character's back now or whatever, there were it still took a different spin to it. Like bringing back Garmadon and Sons of Garmadon, it's like obviously that was done because of the movie tie-in and everything, and they needed to bring this character back because of these new fans coming in from the movie. Haha, that idea. We needed Garmadon back so we would have recognizable stuff going on. It's like, got all that, but so it's like it was kind of corporate mandated, but they did such a good job of bringing him back because it was that really interesting idea that is paid off well here so far in Crystalized. I think that they still did that well. Is that okay? Garmadon's back, but is only the evil side. It is only the Lord Garmadon, not the Sensei Garmadon, not the husband Garmadon, not the loving brother Garmadon. No, it is the Lord Garmadon, the evil would-be conqueror Dark Lord of Ninjago. And it's like, it's like, oh, the family strife between Wu and Lloyd and Misako and what that means to them and what that does to them. It's like, that was all really, really good drama. And it's like, and that helps sell the world of these plastic ninja, spinning around to sell toys and stuff. That drama and those stakes really sold it. So then, but then when Nia sacrifices herself, and then not even a season later, it's like 3-4 episodes later, she's back, and it's like, oh no, I lost my powers. But then by the end of the season, it's like, oh yay, my powers are coming back. It's just going. It just really feels like now at this point, it's really feeling like they don't have permission to drastically change things on a fundamental level so they can continue to sell their toys. And it feels like that at this point, the toy line of Ninjago is holding the storyline of Ninjago back, which is really unfortunate, I think, because in prior years, the toy line and the storyline have helped elevate each other. Like Sons of Garmadon is one of the best seasons of the show. However, I think it has maybe one of the worst set lines of the show. I look at that wave and I kind of go, but then, it's like on its own, I really go, and even with the context, I still kind of go, yeah, these don't really look that appealing. But there's a couple things in there like, oh, well, Lloyd's car. I mean, you could get that and you could recreate him smashing the screen in anger, which is just more funny than anything. But I you know what? Hold on. A better example is a set that technically doesn't even show up in the show, and it was just a minifigure pack, basically, is that Throne Room Showdown from Hunted that came with basically all the girls and Lloyd, because it was Nia, it was Skylar, it was Pixel, it was Harumi, and Lloyd. I that was revealed, and I bought that the instant I saw it on a shelf. It's like, I have to get this because this comes with so many great characters. And that is where the toy line and the show can complement each other very well. But I feel like the show in this season was really held back by, we have to squeeze all these things in here from the toy line. And it's just it's like, it's so unfortunate because last season with Seabound, that almost fit. I mean, that was like perfect synergy. Basically everything lined up. There was not a whole lot that was in the show that was not in the sets. And so it's like, if you really, if you're a kid and you had some like very generous grandparents and stuff, it's like you could get that entire wave pretty much. And you could like recreate the entire season for the most part. I mean, there's going to be some stuff like the Chen trucks or stuff, driving around in Ninjago City. There is no Antonia minifigure. I don't think there is a Little Nelson minifigure that's been released a time or two, but there is no Antonia minifigure, I don't think. So it's like, so there's some small stuff like that with side characters. Dareth as a minifigure hasn't been released in a long while. But it's like, still, it's like you could get all of those sets and recreate like most of the season. But with Crystalized, it's like, okay, I mean, here's the big Overlord. You can have him fight Oni Lloyd, but Oni Lloyd was only on screen for about 3 seconds and did diddly squat. It's like, Garmadoni gets a minifigure, so it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, Garmadoni, cool that he gets. I'm pretty sure Garmadoni got a minifigure, and I'm pretty sure, yeah. It's just like, okay, it's like, there's that. He got some good screen time, but it's like, oh well, here's these vehicles. Oh, Zane gets another jet, cool. Jay gets another bike, cool. Cole gets another, thing. Kai gets another car thing. It's like that we've seen them have 1,000 times before at this point. Those are kind of lame. They don't really do too much in the... And even the like upgrades that they get to take on the Crystal Army, it's like, are those really represented in the sets? I can't remember if they are or not. So it's like, even then, it's kind of like, I mean, is that even representative of what was in the show? The crystal generals. It's like, I mean, okay, yeah, it's cool to see Pythor back, Asphera, that makes sense. The mechanic, whatever. Mr. F was a total waste again. It's like, I don't know why I expected them to do something with him this time around. It's like, yeah, okay, they crushed him, and it's like very easily, whoop-de-diddly do, and then it's like, okay, so the ninja get their dragon modes, but they're only around for like the last little bit in the climax. So it's like even the sets this time around don't really represent the season as a whole very well, because it's like, and it just makes me ask what's the point with a lot of these things that they add into it felt like this season there was a big disconnect between what the writers wanted to do and what the set designers wanted to do, and they couldn't quite coalesce things together like they were able to last season. Because it's like, what was the point of the mayor? What was the point of the new ninja? It's like, they're not in the sets at all. Are the new ninjas? No, the new ninja are not in the sets. If the new ninja were in the sets, I would remember that. But no, the new ninja are not in the sets. They're just there in the show. The mayor serves no. It's like, because this seemed like I remember speculating and stuff like, oh, the mayor is totally like a pawn of the Overlord, or maybe he even is the Overlord in disguise, and he's weakened, and that's why he needs the crystals to build himself back up, because he's only been able to be this mayor for however long and stuff. So it's like, oh, and so, but regardless, he somehow either is the Overlord or is serving the Overlord, and that's why he's. And it's like, maybe these new ninja aren't really even real people. Maybe they're just all ninjroids, and so, maybe it's like, and I never said this on air anywhere, but I'm like, I wonder maybe if one of them is General Crypto or something, even though we saw him, it's a robot, you could save his programming somewhere. It's like, you could tie in Rebooted in season 2, and you do all these things, but it's like, no, that was just a total waste. Hound Dog McGraw, it's like, I think he may have actually gotten a minifigure. And see, at this point, there's so many of these types of characters that I can't remember who gets a minifigure and who doesn't get a minifigure. So it's like, I'm gonna Google this right now. Then just it'd help if I spell it correctly. NinjaGo Crystalized sets. All right, hold on. Let me go to images here. Oh yeah, and then here's one of them. It's the Temple of the Crystal King, which isn't. I mean, it's technically there, but it's not even really. It's not even really there, because it's just the big floating thing. You don't see it all that often. They don't use it all that often. Crystal King, that has Harumi, the Overlord, the big dragon. There's Oh, here's a list of just all the minifigures. There's Skylar. Yeah, Garmadoni. So I was right. Garmadoni got a minifigure. Cole, Skylar, the Generals. Okay, no. So Hound Dog McGraw did not get a minifigure, but he looks like any other. He looks like he's something straight out of Lego City or something. So it's like, that's probably why I could see him having a minifigure in my head. So it's like there's so many of these aren't even characters in the sets characters, to where it's such a, what is even the point of them if they don't appear in the sets? Because it's like, isn't the point of the show to sell the toy? It's like, if it's like, and there's some characters like Dareth, where he was never in any of the sets, and he was created just for the show, and he ended up becoming a fan favorite character. And he eventually got a minifigure through that because of how popular he is. Edna, same thing. There, in the early days like that, there's definitely a lot of characters like that they were created just for the show and were never really meant to get minifigures, but because of the popularity through the story, they did eventually get minifigures, and that's great. But we are a decade plus into this theme now. We can't keep. It's like there's such a large list of extra characters at this point, and I get it. You got to sell new toys, so you got to make new characters and stuff. So I feel like that at this point, if it's not a new minifigure that comes in a set, the writers cannot be making new characters because we're already as stuffed as it is. It's like, what was the point of Hound Dog McGraw or the Mayor or any of these other and any of these, so the new Ninja stuff like that, the new Ninja no minifigures like I thought. It's like, instead of wasting time on some of these characters, why not better integrate some of the other characters you had to work with, which is one of the ways that circling back around to the Elemental Masters and stuff. It's like, where the heck were they? It's like, were they just all on vacation? Coincidentally, at the same time, we got Skylar, but that was it. It's like, no Karloff, no Griffin Turner, no, I forgot the Master of the Mind, but all these characters, it's like they showed up in Hunted and it was awesome. It was really cool to see them. It made sense for them to show up because the city was under a major attack and they'd been missing for several seasons and everything. So it was cool to see them show up and help out, especially when things were so dire. Because it's like, on some occasions, it's like, okay, yeah, the Elemental Masters don't really need to be seen here. You can just assume that they're maybe helping out in other places, while the Ninja handle most everything else going on. But in some of these major cases, like a Hunted or a Crystalized, where like the city is essentially taken over, and I'm pretty sure a long period of time, and like people are hiding in their basements and stuff as the villain flies above the city or whatever, threatening to destroy everything, and is sending out his army to look for the Ninja so he can round them up and execute them. That is when the Elemental Masters need to get involved, and that was what needed to happen here in Crystalized. And I understand them not using them because of the glut of characters they already had, and that would just maybe be too much. And also, I don't think Wildbrain has assets for them. But maybe instead of making new assets for these characters that aren't in the sets and aren't really serving the story much, instead of making new assets for them, you could make new assets for the Elemental Masters. Just a thought, Wildbrain. It's like, maybe you could do that instead. It's like, I would have so rathered that. I think some people were even maybe thinking that early on that maybe the new Ninja were the Elemental Masters, and that would have honestly kind of made sense. And it's like, it could have been a big reveal. It's like, oh yeah, but nope, that's not what happened at all. So so that whole plot line just really falls flat. And it's like, why even bother with this? So like I was saying earlier, obviously they wanted to pull an end game here and have their big kind of Portals moment with all of the returning characters. The problem is that they just wasted so much time on all of these other characters that don't really support the story in any way, that don't have minifigures in the sets, and so probably shouldn't be getting screen time to begin with, that when the other characters do show up for kind of their cameos at the end, they don't do anything. Now, it's like, you can go, oh, well, you can see Vanya fighting some rock monsters or whatever in the background. It's like, yeah, she fought some rock monsters in the background. She never got a line. She never got a cool moment. She never got a moment with Cole that was like, hey, it's good to see you again, buddy. Or it's like, hey, we should go out after this or something, because that's another thing I'll get to here in a minute about the ending. It's, there's never, it's like, the Serpentines show back up. There's never a moment where Scales slithers up to Lloyd and it's like, it's good to see you again. It's like, oh, I can't believe you guys came. It's like, we like to stick to ourselves or whatever, but we had to, if Pythor's involved, then we have to get involved because, we know he's bad news and stuff like that. Totally would have bought that. That would have justified them being there, and it's like, and again, I get it with these 11-minute episodes. You don't want to get some of these voice actors in a room for one or two lines, and that being it. Where with an Endgame, you've got millions and millions and millions of dollars to spend on getting all of these actors in a room together around-ish the same time, because then the movie's going to make $1 billion at the box office and everyone's going to be paid and happy. well, let me rephrase. Everyone's going to be stupidly paid and happy. Whereas with the team working on Ninjago, they are working on a very, very small fraction of the budget. It wouldn't surprise me if if the budget that goes towards Ninjago, it goes towards like catering on a Marvel movie, like Avengers Endgame. I mean, honestly. So yeah, so it's like I get not wanting to get the voice actors in there for a very small amount of lines and stuff, but I mean, it's just applying your resources better, where instead of again making these new assets for these people that don't show up in the sets and don't really impact the story much, use that time and energy to make assets for old characters that'd be cool to see. And not all of them have to say anything. Like if Griffin Turner or the Master of the Mind, what's her name, or what's her name that does Poison. I'm really bad with the Elemental Master names outside of one or two of them. Or the plant guy. You know, if none of them say anything, I don't think anyone's really going to care because they didn't really say much to begin with. But it's like Karlov, yeah, you kind of expect him to say something, but and that's the thing, is that you even had some of those voice actors in the room already because you're bringing them back to voice other pre-established characters already, like the Overlord. Like I'm 99.9% certain that the Overlord and Karlov are voiced by the same guy. So it's like you already have him in the room, so why not just bring in Karlov and give him one line? It's like Griffin Turner, I don't even think has to say anything. So it's like, but it's like have someone to represent the group. The Upley were there, and it's so cool to see the Upley. And for as chatty and charismatic a group as they were, they said absolutely nothing, and it just felt a little weird. And it's like, and so that scene really played with my emotions because it's like, Corgran jumps down, he smashes some crystal guys, and you hear the little Corgran and everything. I'm like, oh, these characters are so much fun. I love them. But they're not really actually doing anything. They're not really getting a satisfying, oh, remember this is why we like these characters moment. It's just a point in the background to go, I know that person, which those two things sound the same, but they're not. Because in Endgame, like I said, everyone got a moment to do something, even if it was small. And most of the time it paid forward something that had been set up in the past, like the running with the Infinity Gauntlet. Hawkeye's like, if I got to go through all of that, and then Black Panther says, Clint, give it to me. That is a payoff from Civil War, where Hawkeye says to Black Panther as they're fighting at the airport, hey, we haven't met yet. I'm Clint. And he goes, I don't care. But he listened. He took note that this guy's name is Clint. So later when they do meet each other again on that battlefield, he calls him Clint. Okay, that's a pay for, that was a setup and a payoff that was years in the making. Same thing with later with Spider-Man when he's running with the gauntlet and he's being swarmed by the Marauder creatures or whatever, and he goes, activate instant kill, and the suit activates and their eyes go red and it starts stabbing everyone. That was a payoff from a joke from Spider-Man Homecoming. And it's like there's all these little, it's even like the Wasp going, we're on it, Cap, and then smiling and giving a little cocky smirk to Scott, and it's like that was a payoff from Ant-Man and the Wasp. So there's all these little moments where each character, even if it's small, they get to do a little something that kind of, for most of them, that kind of gets them to pay off their reason for being there, and is this, which helped make Endgame feel like this gigantic, finale event, and everything. It's like even Pepper Potts got to wear the rescue suit, which is, especially considering it seemed like for a time when Paltrow wasn't coming back to the MCU, that was still really cool to see. Is that, oh my gosh, she's actually in the rescue suit. She's actually flying around and stuff and helping out. What a great payoff from Iron Man 1 all the way back in the day. So it's like, but the characters in Ninjago that are the background characters, they don't get time to do that. Where it's like, oh yay, Vanya's here in the background. Ooh, the Upley are here in the background. Ooh, yay. Shoot, I'm forgetting his name, and I feel bad for forgetting his name. Benthamar is here, and he's got his squid people armies. And it's like, they're here in the background. They're never, there's, and the episode is 11 minutes long, so you never get a moment to actually see them do anything cool. There's like, oh, they're firing a trident gun thing that the Merlopians have, and that's it. Woo! It's like you never get to see anything. You never get to see anything on the level of Valkyrie riding a Pegasus over a giant disposable CG army while Spider-Man rides on the back of the Pegasus with her, as one of the Chitauri Leviathans comes flying. There's nothing on that level in this supposed in-game type finale that they were trying to build up. And then for the moments that do impact our characters and are kind of supposed to maybe be payoff, it's like there are so many fake out deaths in the last several episodes of the season, and I'm just like, why? Why are you doing this? Either commit and actually start killing people, or just stop. Just stop. Because and this goes back to this Ninjago bingo is, oh no, Zane is badly damaged again. I hope he makes it out this time. Oh look, miraculously he makes it out this time. And this is honestly probably, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but this is probably the worst Zane is damaged moment we've ever had, because Pixel kisses him on the cheek and he wakes up, and it is so stupidly cheesy without there being, because first of all, there's not really a narrative reason for Zane to be taken out of the fight, except that this is the writers wanting to give us a pick Zane moment, where it's like, oh, and I do have a theory about some of these that I will get to later when I get to the ending. This is going to be a long video. I apologize if you guys don't want to listen to me this long. Hopefully you guys are sticking around. So, at least as of now, it does not seem like that there is a reason that Zane needed to be taken out of the fight, except for the fact that they wanted to give us a pick Zane moment, which they could have done a multitude of other ways without giving us the fake out death. It just seemed like, oh, well, here we're checking a box of Zane is hurt, and oh, we get to check off another box. It's a twofer. We get to check off another box at the same time of we get a pick Zane moment. And then we get to play the really awesome Pixel theme that is amazing, especially over the credits. It just feels rushed and manipulative, and not and it's like, obviously it's not good for being rushed, but stories are built to manipulate you, and whether or not they do it good, well or not, that is what makes a story good or not. And this is not manipulating you well. It's like this feels cheap. It is like, hey, remember all these things the characters have been through in this 3 seconds that we're gonna pretend that Zane is, and they don't even make him dead. They just put him in a coma. I mean, they totally G.I. Joe the movie duked Zane here, where it's like, he's in a coma. We don't know if he'll wake up. He immediately wakes up. They couldn't even go the full Optimus Prime treatment and fully kill Zane off, even temporarily. Oh my gosh. So that was annoying. It's like, why are we doing this? And then the whole Ice Emperor being the return of the Ice Emperor was the whole name of the episode. But it's like, I would have been better if that episode had been named Motivational Speech or something like that, or like the Reformed Convicts or something like that, because that honestly had more to do with the plot of the episode than Zane's brain being on the fritz. It's just and then going back to the whole characters show up in the background but they don't do anything. Why has Kilo been silent for all of his appearances since season 11? He has not said. He's been in, and it's like in a lot of shots he's a background character. Fine, whatever. It's like he doesn't need to speak there, but he is conspicuously silent here in these episodes. That he is right there front and center. There's slapstick stuff with him because he's trying to get in the mech and he's falling over, and he doesn't say a word. And then also another thing is that this is not something I don't think I brought up, but after Hunted, Ultraviolet's I'm pretty sure that Ultraviolet's voice actor changed from whoever it was in Sons of Garmadon and Hunted to Kelly Metzger, who is Nia. So it's like they just gave it to Nia because she's the girl in the room. So it's like, well, why just make her sound a little crazy, and it's close enough already. It's like, and it's noticeable. I mean, there's some times where it's like, okay, yeah, no, this sounds like Ultraviolet, but then there's other times it's like, that wasn't Nia, that wasn't Ultraviolet, that was Nia. And it's like, I mean, I guess good for Kelly because she's getting work. And it's like, hey, you earned that paycheck. It's like, if you can voice multiple characters at a time and get paid for it, then hey, that's awesome. But it's just weird that, they have all these characters to juggle, but they can't afford the number of voice actors to actually effectively juggle these characters, that they're having to recast with other people that are already in the room instead of actually having them be voiced by who they're supposed to be voiced by. I think that even, I think Cyrus Borg was even voiced by someone that wasn't the regular guy in for like 2 lines in one of the episodes he was in. I'm like, that doesn't sound like Cyrus Borg. And suddenly he was back to sounding like Cyrus Borg. I'm like, that was weird. So I don't know. I don't know what's up with some of that. It just seems like maybe they're overextending themselves. And it's like, and if you don't have, and it's like it seems like they really stretched themselves on the budget with this. And I feel like they could have done better on delivering on that in-game style ending they wanted if they had cut back on and here's the F word that you're not going to like, but the filler. Because it's like, what? Because some of it's like, okay, I see, like, going back to the whole thing from part 1 of the season of, here's the girl who wrote the song and everything, and it teaches Zane to not hold, that he needs his emotions and he can't hold them in and everything. First of all, that whole thing, thinking about it longer, that kind of goes against his character and his whole, like, story arc that he sort of kind of had in season 11 with being the Ice Emperor and just being this cold, unfeeling machine, and that being his greatest fear, that he would just, be a regular machine and everything. And so him cutting out his emotions and everything kind of goes against that. And he doesn't have like a revelation of, oh, I'm totally going against this thing I learned at one point. I need to stop this. Which, and if he had that, if he had that revelation that he realized he was repeating past mistakes, then I think that's worth the retread. But he doesn't, and that's the problem, is that of the stupid reverting to status quo, is that everyone keeps learning the same lessons, and that is something I hate about kids shows, is that the characters never evolve and they just keep learning the same lessons. And on one hand, for certain shows, I think that can work fine if it's like a SpongeBob type show where canon and plot isn't really very important and you can go week to week. Or, year, or like you watch one episode 1 year and then it's 3 years before you watch another episode and you can still follow things fine because there is not really any large overarching plot and everything. That shows, a lot of kids shows do that and they do them fine because that's the way that's the way their stories are told, because they're supposed to be just like little 11-minute whatever adventures. But NinjaGo's not like that. It has an overarching story with character arcs and stuff they're trying to tell. So the constant resetting of characters maturing and then going back to the way they were feels like lazy writing, and you can't do that with a show like this. And of course that's always been a problem with season 11, that it doesn't really feel like Zane. Obviously they built it up and said this is what he learned, but he's never, it's like this is why we're foreshadowing it this way. But, his whole reverting back from the Ice Emperor and everything doesn't really ever feel totally earned. It's just a Simba, remember who you are moment, really. So, it's frustrating. And then speaking of repeating things, we come to something you probably expected me to talk about at some point this, because I mentioned him a little bit, but we come to our main villain, the freaking Overlord. I hate the Overlord so much. If you watched any of my NinjaGo videos at all on this channel, you know that I am not a fan of the Overlord. So let me just reiterate. I hate the Overlord, especially the way he was written here. It was so dumb. It was so bad. I had to do so many eye rolls when it came to this character being back. The Overlord can never truly be destroyed. As long as there is conflict in the world, he will find a way to return. And I'm like, okay. On the one hand, with the way the lore of this show is kind of built up and him kind of being this like mythical force of nature more than a person, entity, whatever you want to call it, it's like, I can totally understand that being the way the Overlord works, and I can buy that. However, then what was the point of the prophecy in season 2? That was called the final battle. I guess that we're just throwing all that out the window because as I have critiqued many a time at this point, that was never brought up in Rebooted at all. The fact that the prophecy was wrong, and it's like there was never any grappling over the idea that the prophecy was wrong. Everyone just kind of shrugged their shoulders and went, "Oh, the Overlord's back," and they never mentioned it again, even though so much of the marketing was like, it's the final battle. And of course, that's because the show was written, the theme was originally supposed to be ending, and then it was revived. So it's I get that. But that's it was the core thing of an entire season. And that's what I hate about Ninjago at this point, is that so many seasons at this point seem to be just straight up retconning or undoing or making redundant prior seasons, especially when they've been good. Now, I have my problems with season 2, as it's like it's got several filler episodes at the beginning that I'm not too terribly fond of. And then the story as a whole, when it does finally get going, is just not as strong as I thought season 1 of the pilots were. But that being said, it's like, okay, that was still a decent, closing of a chapter with Lloyd, and it's like the whole family dynamics between Wu and Lloyd and Garmadon and Misako. I've always found all that interesting and fascinating. So that was, well handled, and it's like the fact that the Overlord wasn't that menacing of a villain and kind of more one note wasn't really an issue at the time in season 2, because Garmadon was the character we really cared about, and we didn't want to see him. And he was already struggling with being evil enough that we didn't really want to see him be the Overlord's vessel. So it's like the Overlord didn't really need to be that developed. He could just be this vague bad guy, and it worked there. But you start bringing him back over and over and over, and you don't iterate on him. You don't, go into his backstory too much more or explain how he works in the world more when you've got this Oni Dragon nonsense going on. He starts to work less and less and less and less. And the only way I would have accepted him if they brought the Overlord back again is if they had gone like a full, here's how he works, and explained like everything down to every intricate little detail. Then I would have accepted that. And they don't do that. They just give a lame excuse of, as long as there is conflict, the Overlord can always come back. Well, screw you then. Okay, fine, whatever. It's like I'm so done with the Overlord. It's because now it's like Rebooted is totally worthless now. 100% worthless. There is nothing good about Rebooted anymore except the music to me. Even Zane's sacrifice now means nothing. The big emotional moment, one of the things people point to is like one of the most pivotal moments in Ninjago history, that this popular moment everyone points to is this really awesome moment everyone remembers, means nothing anymore because the villain came back. I was already ticked enough, and that's part of the reason I don't like Rebooted, is I was already ticked enough that it undid the ending to season 2 with the prophecy and everything. It's like, well, I guess Lloyd's not as special as the show made him out to be anymore, if the Overlord can just be destroyed by an exploding Nindroid. But now his whole sacrifice, his sacrifice also partially, making the team split up for a time, all of that. It's like, it means nothing. He didn't need to do that, because apparently all you needed are some elemental powers. a Lloyd and a dragon, and you can just punch him into smithereens. It's like, and they keep building the Overlord up as this super hard to beat bad guy, but really, he's pretty easy to beat. The Overlord is kind of a pushover for as big and bad as they try to make him out to be. He's got some okayish designs. I actually like his design a lot here because I think it's actually kind of the most unique out of the previous designs he's had, because his first one was just kind of this nebulous ball. Then he takes over Garmadon's body and then becomes a big dragon. Then he goes back into kind of being a nebulous sludge instead of a nebulous ball with red glowing eyes. And then he becomes the minifigure that's really generic. Then he becomes the Golden Master, which is just a bigger version of the minifigure, which is just, again, really generic. And now we get this guy, which kind of looks more like a Stone Oni or something like that, which I dig a little bit more, especially if they were actually going to dig into his backstory and specify what he is exactly. But they never do that. But it's like, the design was cool for once, at least, I guess. So I just, the Overlord is so dumb. I hate him. I really wish the Crystal King had not been the Overlord. That all being said, I like the direction, and this may be controversial, I actually kind of like the direction they went with Harumi. Because I was like, okay, I will take more Harumi. I would prefer she stayed dead because where her story ended was a good ending point. But where they took her this time, I kind of like it based on premise alone. Now, did they necessarily handle it well because they only had like 13 minutes by the time the revelation happens and everything to wrap things up? No, they didn't necessarily handle it that well on that front because hardly anything's ever done with it. But the idea, I like. That revelation to her that, oh wait, the Overlord is what helped create the Great Devourer, which really means if it hadn't been for him, my parents wouldn't be gone. And that like changing her whole worldview and that being a big revelation to her that makes her realize how wrong she has been the entire time. I like that. I actually like that. Again, I think I would have preferred her to stay dead because she does get that little redemptive moment where she saves the family and then she dies immediately afterwards. Like, well, at least she wasn't all bad and she went out on a good note of being selfless for once instead of selfish. But I don't think that this was inherently a wrong direction to take her character. I kind of like the way they take that. But again, the problem is that it is so rushed that they don't have time to stay on that or anything. And also the way it happened, I thought was just a little weird, of the Overlord going, "You fool, who do you think created the Great Devourer?" Isn't that information we knew? I feel like that was information we knew. I may be making that up, and that may be part of my headcanon creeping into and confusing me on what I remembered actually being canon. But I thought it was established that the Overlord was kind of behind the Great Devourer and that turning Garmadon, because I thought that was like something that we knew back in season 2. Now, to get around that, maybe it's something that we, the audience, knew, but it wasn't something that Garmadon himself actually knew. If that's the way it actually went down, I'm slightly misremembering things like, okay, that wasn't information Garmadon would know. Never mind then. But, so it's like, yeah, but I just feel like that was maybe a little bit of odd information to just randomly throw out in the middle of this fight without much prompting. Because he kind of volunteered that information pretty easily. There wasn't it's not like they were quipping back and forth and Garmadon said, it's like, the Great Devourer was easier to defeat or harder to defeat than you were. And then that prompts and goads the Overlord into giving up that information that Harumi overhears and turns her allegiance. So but again, that's the 11-minute format, not great for the show overall. I would say a failure, and I really hope that we go back to the 22-minute format after this, which is, I guess, something I can go ahead and move into now, because it's like I could keep going on and on about the Overlord, but I've said my piece on the Overlord so many times. This did not change my mind about the Overlord at all, other than the design was cool for once, and it's like, and I guess he can come back when they're out of ideas again, because as long as there's conflict, which is always going to be conflict because it's an action theme, he can come back. So woo. So, okay, no, I will touch on one quick more thing about the Overlord, and then I'm done. I promise. I'm done. I promise. Is that again the whole why I didn't like him returning? Is that there's a moment where he sees Zane in his jet, and I really thought for half a second that he was going to go, wait, I know this person, and he realizes it's Zane, and the reason he specifically targets Zane in that moment because he wants revenge for his last defeat, because he focuses so much on Lloyd and Garmadon as like these big thorns in his side, but it's like, dude, that Ninjroid blew you up last time. He's the reason you died and were defeated last time, and your plan didn't work last time. It's like that is he is the reason. Zane the Ninjroid went kablooey, and that was the reason you were no more and you were defeated. So I really thought he was going to go, I know that Ninjroid or something, and try to go after him for revenge. But nah, they didn't even reference that. So it's like, okay, again, see, rebooted, totally worthless now. Anyway, except for, I guess, Pixel. It gave us Pixel as Cybersport. But other than that, yeah, totally worthless. So, all right, I'm done. So, yeah, the future of Ninjago. Where is it moving on from here and everything? I mean, like I said earlier, they said that there's more coming. We know that. And, it's not over. This was not an ending. This was not the end. It is an ending of an era, but it is going to continue. We are getting more Ninjago in the future. So where is it going from here? Well, it looks like there's two paths in front of us at this point, and I don't know which is more likely at this point, because based on what I saw in that ending, I'm like, this is 100% the direction they're going in. But then, like a day later, I started seeing some things of, oh, well, now maybe there's like chapter book descriptions being leaked on book retailers, and it's maybe pointing it toward Nauticon coming back finally. So, just really quick, for those of you that have not seen it yet, there are young reader chapter book leaks, the descriptions of that have been dropping online and like were removed pretty quickly, but it seems like they're maybe legitimate. Where it's going, it's like, a new Tales of Ninjago is coming. It's like, it's like called The Search for Power. Now that it's like, now that ninja have lost their powers, a forgotten adventure maybe holds the key to them getting their powers back. So obviously a big thought with that is like, well, a forgotten adventure, Skybound, that's a forgotten adventure because only Jay and Nia remember. I was also maybe thinking it could be The Dark Island, because that's, it's canon, but it was only released in graphic novels and as a stop motion adaptation on my YouTube channel. Go watch it after this. Plug. But it's like maybe, but I think it's more likely that it's referencing Skybound, because it's a forgotten. It's either Skybound, or it's more likely either Skybound or it's something we've never heard of before, and it's no plot twist. It's Shadow of Ronin. That's what they're talking about. It's Shadow of Ronin. No, I don't think it's that either. So it's most likely they're talking about Skybound there. And so if so, then we're just gonna in January or February or March, whenever the next episode's leak is, because that's how it works at this point. It's never gonna actually come out in a decent way. It's just always gonna leak, and we're gonna watch it on YouTube. That's just how it is forever right now, I guess. But whenever the next episodes come out, it's just gonna pick up right where Crystalized left off, and then we'll just go from there, and maybe they'll finally bring Nauticon back, because they keep teasing him, and I keep getting frustrated that they're teasing him, because there was Clutch Powers again holding that stupid lamp. They keep having Clutch holding the lamp, which keeps making us think that it's connected, but maybe it is literally just something they keep throwing in the background just to be funny and as a red herring. And if that's the case, then I hate them. Because it's like, do something with this. I would have much preferred Nauticon had been the Vengestone buyer, and him be the one in charge of the Crystal Art, and him be the Crystal King, as opposed to the Overlord. Because the Overlord, like I said, I think was played out even before Crystalized. Where Nauticon they could definitely have brought back. Because I suppose in a little way I'm a hypocrite, because here I am going, it's like, oh, I hate that they keep going back to the status quo and there's not any lasting consequences, and that's a complaint people had about Skybound back in the day and still have, is that the entire season is undone in a half second when Nauticon reverses time thanks to Jay's wish. But again, I like that because the people that need to remember those events remember those events. Jay and Nia were affected by that ending, by everything they went through in that time period that only they remember. So, it is the Jaya season. It is just, it's something that they remember. It is this not so fond experience that they went through together that got them back together and everything. And in some ways, they're probably glad they went through it, question mark. They're like, we did not enjoy our time in that part of the timeline that is now erased, but hey, at least we're back together. So it's like, yeah, I guess that, but there's still lasting consequences even now from that season that technically never happened because it got erased partially and only them remember it. So there's at least consequences from that, and things were, and even then it's like, that technically went back to the status quo of what season 1 was, but there was multiple seasons where they were broken up, and that ended up being a big multi-season arc. So it's like, yeah, things eventually returned to the status quo, but it took a while to get there. Where nowadays, things return to the status quo after being changed from a season, maybe less, which just feels really cheap. Where it's like, oh no, Nia's dead. We wait a year for more episodes, and then within 4 or 5 episodes, oh, Nia's back. Yay! So it's like, it's the way it's handled, and it's the speed at which it is handled, which I think is the problem. So yeah, it seems like based on the chapter books, unless this is just going to be for chapter books and it's not actually going to be canon or anything, it seems like maybe that's the direction the story's moving in. On one hand, I'm like, ooh, Nauticon, finally. I've been wanting Nauticon back for a while. Hooray. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, but at this point, I really want a time skip. The other road that I see before me is, I think, a time skip, because either they were totally setting this up for there to be a time skip going forward, or a bunch of these moments happen for no reason. And now that I'm saying all this out loud, I suppose it could be they could bring back Nauticon and do a time skip. But let me talk about why I think there's a time skip coming. Is that, remember a little while ago I was complaining about the Ninjago bingo, oh, here's our Pixane moment. Where it's like, okay, we have Zane, we got Pixel, Zane's taken out again because why not? Because we're checking a box. And it's like, and like I said, that moment seems kind of random. Another moment that I thought felt kind of random was the Kyler bait, where it's like, oh, here's Kai and Skylar, and they're talking about maybe being a couple, and then and then she's just like, let's talk about that after we survive this, if we survive this. And then, oh, here's Vanya, and she's coming back out to help Cole with her army and everything, and then, of course, Jay and Nia. So it's like, and then now even, with Lloyd, it's like maybe, with Harumi, it's like, she does community service or whatever, and she's reformed. It's like maybe they're going to actually be a thing, because there is maybe going to be some legitimate, genuine emotions. Because that's another thing. It's like, I don't know if there's actual genuine emotions from Harumi towards Lloyd. Lloyd towards Harumi, yes, but Harumi towards Lloyd, I don't know. That's doubtful on my part. But, after everything that's gone, maybe there could be some forming. I don't know. That's probably something they don't have time to dig into. And so it's going to feel rushed. But, don't really need to dig into it if there's a time skip and we jump 15 years and they've all got kids, and then the kids all go on an adventure and find the elemental powers, and then they become the new ninja. And see, we even had, and actually, one of the couples even has a kid already with Mini Pix 7. It's like, I mean, come on. It's like, imagine Zane and Pixel like working on Mini Pix 7 together and upgrading her, and then it's like that's their robot daughter or something like that. I mean, it kind of seems like the building blocks are there, and that's like it feels like to me that is obvious setup for a time skip, that we are jumping in the future for the next season. And that is going to be like the all new Ninjago that they were talking about at Comic-Con and everything. It kind of seems like maybe that is the direction they're moving things in. But then there's this whole thing about the Nauticon chapter books, and I'm like, maybe that wasn't set up, and maybe they were just random moments because this season was filled with random moments. I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, I guess that's where we stand. It's like maybe we'll do a time skip. Maybe it's like and like I said, saying all this out loud. Maybe it's actually maybe it is a time skip, and that was obvious building blocks. And then the kids are gonna find Nauticon not knowing what he is, and then Jay and Nia are gonna have to explain to everyone's like, hey, so this happened a long, long, long time ago, and it kind of got erased from time. So y'all don't remember it, but we do, and that's part of the reason we're even married to begin with. So it's I could see now that I'm saying all this out loud, maybe I can comprehend those two things being one path instead of two paths. But I don't know. I don't know where we're going at this point, which is on the one hand kind of exciting, but on the other, it's like, oof, this season was rough. Because like a lot of the goodwill that I had from the first half just kind of got obliterated by the second half. And again, there's like I said, there was still fun to be had. There was some cool fight scenes. There was good banter. I think something Braggy did very well in a lot of cases. He didn't do it perfectly, and it didn't work all the time. But in a lot of cases, he did write the characters well when it came to them bouncing off one another. I think he got their dynamics down pretty well. And in a lot of cases, it did. When we did make the jump from the Hagman brothers writing to Braggy writing, you didn't even really notice whenever that happened. And I think that is a compliment to Braggy's writing, that you couldn't tell that the writing team had switched. Now, the plots I thought were a little more wonky, and it was like, because in terms of the overall plots, Braggy's like shooting 50-50. It seems like every other season, because it's like season 11 has its problems, but it's a new format, so they're kind of getting their footing. I kind of give them that one. Season 12, Prime Empire is whatever at this point. But then Master of the Mountain, really good. Then the Island, going to technically count it as its own thing. It's kind of whatever. It's like, you had 4 11-minute episodes to get a thing done. It turned out as well as it could, honestly, probably. So it's like, but it's still really kind of eh. Then we get to Seabound, and Seabound is really good. Seabound was great. And then we get to Crystalized, and we're back to eh. So he's batting 50 here. It seems like it's like good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. That seemed to have been the pattern with Braggy's seasons, and I don't know. So it seems like with the overall plot, it's a little wonky. But in terms of with the characters actually bouncing off of one another and doing and like quips and all that, just like that felt natural. So he did a good job on that. But so yeah, so I've been going for almost an hour and a half here. That's Crystalized, I guess. There's more stuff I could probably talk about, but it's just, you probably don't want to hear me complain any longer than I already have. It's unfortunate that we're here. I always try to be pretty positive when it comes to Ninjago. Even when I've complained about like Rebooted and stuff. That's why I did rebooted Ninjago Reiterated, because it's like, okay, here's the problems, here's how we fix the problems, to kind of do it. And it's like, because when I complain about something, I try to complain about it constructively and say, hey, here's how this could have been handled better. And it's unfortunate that, because I want things to be good. It's like, if something's bad, I don't go, yes, it's something for me to hate. I love that. It's like a lot of Star Wars fans probably. It's like when something's bad and it's, especially when it's something I enjoy and it's not great, I'm like, that's disappointing. I'm like, how could this have been better? And I try to constructively improve on it in my head. It's like, here's to kind of reconcile. It's like, oh well. So yeah, Crystallized is just it's just going to be another one of those seasons where it's like, that was a thing, I guess. And hopefully, and maybe looking back, we'll say Crystallized wasn't great, but it did act as a springboard for something that ended up being really, really cool. So as always, I'm optimistic, and I hope that is the direction we're moving in. So that'll pretty much be it. For those of you that stuck around this entire time, you guys get a little treat, because to thank you for sticking around this entire time, listening to everything, I'm just going to go ahead and announce here, nowhere else. So for those that don't listen to this part and stopped, 45 minutes ago, you will not know that by the end of the year, I will have a new top seasons ranking video out. So, but for those of you listening, well, you just heard the news. Because with this being the end of an era, my original plan was to wait until we had 20 seasons under our belts. But with this being the end of an era, and this being, depending on how you do the math, season 15, it's like, yeah, okay, I think it's time to go back and rank everything at this point, especially if we get another extended break of Ninjago. I don't know when. I'm assuming things are going to pick up again in January and then spring and everything, but I don't know. Maybe they'll take a little bit of a break and we won't get actual news. Story. Maybe we'll have like another Evo wave or whatever, and in the spring, we'll get another actual season later on next year. So it could be in a little while. So to help with that break and everything. So new seasons ranking video coming by the end of the year. I'm not going to promise a date on that. I'm going to work on it soonish after I collect more of my thoughts and get some other projects worked on. But by the end of the year, I will have that out. So and I will also be taking a look at everything. That's going to include the pilots. That's going to include Day of the Departed. That's going to include the island. I will be ranking everything. Everything that's been a TV show item. I'm not going to take a look at the Dark Island. I'm not going to take a look at Shadow Ronin. But everything that is aired on TV and or leaked on YouTube, to put it that way, that is the stuff I will be taking a look at and will be considering for the official rank. So yeah, there's going to be like 17 items on the list technically, thanks to that. So pilots included and everything. So you all have that to look forward to, because I know you guys like those top 10 videos, and I haven't done one in a long, long time because I have lots of different interests, if you hadn't noticed by the fact that when this video is coming out, I'm in the middle of a series talking about Call of Duty. So yeah, that'll pretty much be it for this video. Thank you for watching so much. If you have watched this long, like I said, almost an hour and a half at this point, ooh boy. Especially if you found my complaining annoying, yet you still listened. Thank you. I hope my critiques were constructive. They were critiques and not outright complaints. They were complaints, but it's like, I hope that some of the things I said, I actually worked on critiquing things and not just complaining for complaining's sake, because I do want Ninjago to be good. I do still love Ninjago, and I will keep watching Ninjago to the very end when it eventually does maybe end someday. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next season rankings video. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.